You ever notice how some scary stories they get under your skin? The ones that feel real, the ones that just kind of set up camp in your brain and refuse to leave. It's not really about jump scares or crazy monsters. It's something way deeper, way more psychological. So yeah, let's dig into this and really dissect what makes true horror so genuinely terrifying.
So, what is it? Why do these stories hit so differently than, some big Hollywood horror movie? Well, the secret sauce, as we're about to see, is that they tap into our deepest, most primal fears. They take the ordinary world we know and just twist it into something deeply unsettling.
And right there, that's the heart of it. True horror takes something you know and trust, and it completely poisons your sense of safety. We're going to dive into 3 incredible stories from Mr. Nightmare's channel, and trust me, each one is a perfect case study in a different kind of primal fear that does exactly that.
Okay, our first story is an absolute masterclass in auditory horror. It plays on this terrifying idea that sometimes what you can hear but can't see is so much worse because your own imagination starts doing all the heavy lifting. It becomes the monster.
So, picture this. The scene is set for maximum vulnerability. You've got a 7th grader all by himself at home. His parents work late, so help is not on the way. And he already has this nagging anxiety, this deep-seated fear that he's not actually alone in the house. A fear that, well, is about to be proven right. The terror here is all in the buildup. It starts with a simple thud, something you might just brush off. But then it gets worse. A deep, unrecognizable voice starts muttering. Then slow, heavy footsteps start coming right for the bathroom door where he's hiding. And then, the finale, this vicious, jabbing sound from the laundry chute, which means the intruder is now downstairs, impossibly fast, and is relentlessly trying to get to him. And this quote, man, it just perfectly captures that feeling of being completely helpless. He's just a kid, trapped, listening to this unseen force trying to break its way in. He can't fight, he can't run. All he can do is listen and hope. The threat is invisible, but the fear, that is 100% real. All right, let's shift gears to our next story. And this one builds from an unknown intruder to something even more personal. The horror of a threat you know violating your most sacred space, your own home. The feeling of dread here is instant. This isn't some ghost or some monster. It's the guy next door. He's always there, always watching. He knows her name, he knows her mom's work schedule, and he specifically asks if she's going to be alone tonight. The threat isn't just outside anymore, it's literally one wall away. There's actually a clinical term for this. It's called scopophobia, the persistent fear of being watched. But a dry clinical definition can't even begin to capture the raw, visceral terror of that fear being confirmed in the most invasive way you can imagine. So she hears this weird grumbling noise and finds this tiny hole in her bedroom wall. She goes to look through it, and it's an eye staring right back at her. In an instant, that barrier between her private space and her neighbor's predatory gaze has been physically destroyed. And this is what makes it truly horrifying. It wasn't just about being spied on. It was the discovery of a second hole in the shower. This reveals a terrifying level of planning, of premeditation. This wasn't some random impulsive act. This was a systematic, calculated invasion of her privacy and her safety. For our last story, we're leaving the compromised safety of the home and we're heading out into the primal darkness of the wilderness, where the fear comes from something ancient and something we can't possibly understand. So the narrator's friend is this experienced outdoorsman who makes a point of avoiding regular campsites. And that choice is absolutely key here. They aren't surrounded by the faint comfort of other campers and RVs. They are totally, completely isolated, deep in the woods, with nothing but the dark all around them. And just like our first story, it all starts with a sound. Footsteps, circling the camp. Something is out there, right on the edge of the firelight. But this time, the sound that comes next makes it very clear. This is not a human being. This description is what just sends the fear into overdrive. It's not a deer, it's not a bear. The sound is described as straight up alien, completely unnatural. It just erases any comforting, rational explanation for what could possibly be hiding in those trees. And then they see it. Well, not clearly. They see a shadow cast by the fire against the thin wall of the tent. And what they see is terrifying. It's huge, and it's bipedal. It walks on two legs like a person, but its size and sound are absolutely monstrous. A scream from the other tent just triggers pure panic. They take off, running into the pitch-black woods with this thing chasing them. They finally make it to their truck only to hit a dead end. They're forced to make this slow, agonizing turn, knowing that the creature is right there, with them, in the dark. So, okay, we have 3 very different stories, 3 different places, 3 completely different threats. But they all share this one incredibly powerful element that makes them stick with us for so long. So let's just break it down real quick. The first story weaponizes that unseen threat right inside our own home. The second one shows the chilling violation of that sanctuary by a person you actually know. And the third taps into that primal fear of what's lurking out there in the great unknown. 3 very distinct psychological triggers. And here it is. This is the secret ingredient. In every single one of these stories, the threat is never fully revealed. It's never explained. We never see the intruder's face. We have no idea what the neighbor was ultimately planning, and we never ever find out what that creature in the woods was. That ambiguity, it completely short-circuits the logical part of our brain and lets our own imagination become the real monster. This last quote from the first narrator just says it all, doesn't it? It's the total lack of resolution. See, psychologically, our brains are wired for something called cognitive closure. We need answers. We need to be able to label a threat to feel safe again. Real horror denies us that comfort. It leaves the question mark hanging in the air, active and unresolved in our minds. And that really leaves us with the final big question. These stories are terrifying because they leave a void. From an evolutionary perspective, our minds are hardwired to treat an unknown threat as an infinite one. We're left with this massive question mark that our own imagination rushes to fill in with our absolute worst fears. So think about it. When it comes to true horror, is the not knowing the scariest part of all?